Hi guys, welcome to the podcast, Morse Code Podcast, the name of this one. I'm Korby, I'm the name of this one, and I've been thinking about how to introduce this guy. I'll just tell you the story, maybe. That's a good way of starting. Came across him on the gram, and I was just like, does this person actually exist on planet Earth? The dude sings like, I'm not even gonna try to do it, but you know, like where you sing a whole bunch of notes in a row. But he does that, and then he does it like really high, and I'm like, how do I not even know about this guy? I don't know anything apparently, because he was a runner-up on American Idol. It's a show that is out there. So I see this guy singing, and that's one thing to see a great singer. Okay, that's fine. But he also has this crazy knack for melody and harmony in particular. And you should check out his gram. He's got a lot of playful ideas about different ways to make songs interesting or add dissonance. Even that word dissonance, that's not a word you hear often enough in popular music. Clark, he's kind of a one of one. I'm going to say he is the most talented person I've seen in a long time, just in terms of sheer singing. And I told him that on the podcast. I also told him, man, look at you. People are going to be like thinking you got it yourself all put together. Like, you got this talent. What's going on? Is there any chinks in that armor? You got any scareds inside you? I asked him that. I'm not going to tell you what he said because it kind of took me by surprise. I mean, we talked about some of the Idol stuff and what happened in the years that followed. Also, somewhere in there, he sat down and played a song he wrote on that piano right there. The last half of this conversation, I don't know if it's going to be interesting to everybody, but it was interesting to me because he is really involved in praise and worship music, and I rather famously loathe praise and worship music. I hate it, like in a weird get off my lawn old man sort of way. We explore that together, but it was a really fruitful conversation about the role that art plays in faith expressions and the role that taste perhaps plays or doesn't play in the modern American church-going experience. I just am really excited to share this conversation with you, and so I'm going to let Clark do the talking here on the Morse Code Podcast.
There has got to be more than this.
Clark Beckham, man, thanks so much for your time and for coming over here to talk with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for trusting me with a microphone and a camera and your time.
So far, so good. Well, let's just say, we're 30 seconds in, so we'll see where it goes. But yeah, man, I've been following you ever since we kind of first interacted, and you've had a wild and at times high profile career and an unusual one in that. And I thought that maybe we could couch this conversation in these following terms, if you're amenable, which is that the guests kind of from episode to episode have in common this self-determined aspect to their careers, in that they chose to go the indie way. And I feel like your journey in the indie way looked a little different than some of the more folky guests, we could say, that we've had on the podcast, but nonetheless an indie way it was. And I think that, we'll go here and there, I believe, my prediction, but maybe we could start with, I'm just going to try an early Beckham bio summary, and then you can tell me what I get wrong, and then we'll charge through from there. Okay, so you came up, you were actually born in East Nashville. I didn't know that part. That's not in the Wikipedia. But you did grow up in Tennessee.
Yep.
You had musical parents. Mm-hmm. Your father taught you to play guitar at an early age. You took to it.
Pretty much. I watched him and was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you went to college in a small university in Eastern Tennessee, Lee.
Yep, Lee University.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I learned a little bit about your where you got your piano chops from, and we'll get into that perhaps. But it wasn't until you were probably like 22 that you auditioned for and got an American Idol.
Yeah, right when I graduated from Lee.
So maybe we could just so there are broad strokes. Are we there?
On the money. Yeah.
Okay, cool. First of all, I kind of want to spend a little bit of time with like the highest profile thing, so we just get that out of the way.
Sure, yeah.
And then go to the interesting stuff. But you had mentioned, or in the research that I did, that you didn't initially want to audition for this particular season of American Idol, partly because, you didn't feel it was time, and partly because you'd have a couple of maybe less than ideal experiences either with American Idol or the other one.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I had auditioned. So all the shows have scouts that just scour the internet, just looking for singers, and then to come audition, and they invite them to skip the first round. That's like they call the cattle call, where it's just like everybody comes and sings.
Dude, I've been a part of those. A few of those.
Yes?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I know what it is.
So you get to skip that. America's Got Talent and The Voice, those scouts reached out to me and asked me to audition at the same time, actually, like within a couple weeks of each other. And I auditioned for both of those. The Voice, I was getting over a cold, and my voice was good enough where you couldn't tell I had a cold, but it was bad enough where I didn't sing as great. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have a great audition there. And then they're like, we'll let you know. And it was months and I hadn't heard anything. And then when I'd reach out, they just said, we'll let you know. And America's Got Talent, I auditioned and they said, come on, let's go. We'll fly you to Newark and we're going to shoot it and you'll see the judges and do the whole thing. So I went with them. And then that experience was just a little ugly, just wasn't great. And actually got 4 yeses from America's Got Talent judges. I actually got 4 bareleys. They were kind of like, yeah.
Is that a technical term?
Yeah, no, but it sure is an emotional term. It was just very like, yeah, okay. Howard Stern was like, I played guitar and I played Try Little Tenderness. And he was like, is that guitar in standard tuning or open tuning? I was like, what an interesting question. So you know enough to know what that is, but not enough to be able to look at my hands and know the answer to that question. Yeah. I was like, it's standard. He goes, I just don't know if you're good enough to play and sing at the same time.
You should have said open.
And I was like, copy that, Howard Stern. And he was like, but I'll see I'm interested to see what you can do. So I just got a bunch of like,
conditional passes.
Yeah. But then the day I was supposed to fly out to the next round, I was still waiting on my flight information. And I was like, am I going to get like an itinerary or anything? And yeah, we'll let you know soon. And it was just really weird. And then the day I was supposed to go, I was like, I'm packed. I feel like I'm not going because I still don't have any flight information. And they just kept telling me like, it's coming. And then it never came. And then the email that I got that day was, sorry, it's a no this year, but please try out next year. We can't tell you why. And I was like, what? And weeks later, my mom was like, American Idol's coming to town. I was like, no, I'm done. I'm done with these shows. Blah, blah.
I'm better than that.
Yeah. And
do it the honest way in the coffee shops, one fan at a time.
I didn't want that either because my career at that point was street performing. Like most people's story is, they start in the bar scene and they can't get out of the bar scene. I couldn't get into the bar scene. I mean, I went to every bar and I was like, let me play for free. Like, just please. And they're like, we're good. So, I mean, I didn't want to do it, honestly, the organic way because I was doing that for years as a street performer and I didn't.
What do you mean by that? I read it and I thought that was a charming, poetic, if exaggerated claim, but were you like on Second? On Broadway?
That was the spot, actually.
Paint me a picture.
That's actually the best spot is Broadway and Second on the north side. Mm-hmm. You get the most space and most people park on Second and most people walk up. That's true. They walk on that corner and there's a ton of space there and there aren't any bars there because a lot of the bars will have their windows open and then they play their music loud to attract people. Well, then that ruins that space for a street performer because it's like sound polluted, So that was like the spot if you could get it. But yeah, that's where I set up was if I could get it was Second and Broadway. The south side was where the big like cowboy boots store was. That was another good spot, but not nearly as good because no one parked on that side. Anyway, but that's where I
you set up with an acoustic guitar and an amp What
Just
was
an
it
acoustic
like?
guitar.
Amp.
If you had amplification, it's kind of one of those
You draw too much
unwritten
attention.
rules.
Yeah.
Because if you had amplification, okay, great, now you're polluting the other side of the street. And a spot where another performer could have been can't be because you have amplification. So it's kind of one of those, like, if you had amplification, one of the other street performers or like the homeless community, like they might accidentally step on your, like, your cable or accidentally unplug or knock your something over. Oops, one of those things. Like,
I gotta say though, I mean, it takes a lot of courage to just stand out there in front of God and everybody and just sing. So there's something, you had that going for you. Little
I
misguided as it might have been.
I think it was actually arrogance, actually, because
sure.
I thought it was gonna be this situation where I sang and hordes of people would surround
Just gather.
me.
They couldn't
and
help themselves.
The bartender and the managers that said no to me would come out and be like, "What's all this commotion? There's the guy that we said no to, and wow,
what
man,
were we thinking?
Of
if only we
course.
could have him now."
Yeah, and the reality is, the first night I sang for 2 hours and I made $2.14, and I was like, "Oh crap, this is hard," because no one goes downtown to give money to street performers or even listen to street performers. And it's one of those things where they avoid looking at you because if they look at you, then they feel obligated to like give you money. And so they just don't look. And it's actually really an atmosphere for insecurities to be stirred up and oh man. Yeah. So it was a lot tougher than I thought.
Okay, so you were sufficiently motivated, although you didn't feel like it was the right time. And I do want to get into the spiritual component of your life, but I thought we'd start out secularly for fun and to keep the doors wide open here. But when you finally decided to audition, again, it was, you didn't have to do the cattle call, right? Did you just send in a tape?
Yeah, and honestly, it was, I told my mom, no, I don't want to audition. And her response was, they're doing video submissions for the first time. Just send in a video and then you can decide, like, what's it going to hurt? It's like, okay, fine. So I sent in the video and then they said, yeah, come on. We'd love for you to sing for the producers. And then I was like, okay. So it wasn't even that I thought it was the wrong time. I was just bitter about shows and auditioning. And then my mom convinced me to do it anyway.
As you said that, I thought of a thing that you've gone through that a lot of performers never do, which is a very quick ascent to a high profile, high pressure situation. Did you kind of have that in your bones going into it, that like, this is what I want to do? Or was it a trial by fire experience? I'll say this, saying that this morning I watched a couple of your performances from season 14, and I mean, dude, you kill it. It looks like you're having a great time and you're hitting the notes. And I mean, on Superstition, you're playing guitar at the same time and singing. I mean, like, this is not amateur hour here. So anyway, yeah,
thanks, man. Yeah, I think it's actually set up really well where your first 5 performances or so, there's no audience and you're not on television. Like, you're being filmed, but that plays later, there's
that's
not
those
a live
clips that
show.
we see. Are the judges there?
Yeah,
those
yeah.
ones, yeah.
So like the audition, Hollywood Week, like that's all being filmed, but you're like, no one knows that you're top 24. They don't even know, the auditions haven't even aired yet. So I was really nervous in my audition. I was really nervous the next like 3 performances, but just a little less nervous every time. And then I made the cut to top 24 from like 400 people in a Hollywood Week. And by that time I had like 4 or 5 performances under my belt. I did have the confidence. I was like, okay, now I think I know what I'm doing. Let's go.
You saw the talent. You saw the the competition out there. You're like, all right, I can hang with this.
It was more of just like reps. Like, all right,
yeah,
I've done it. I've sung in front of Jennifer Lopez, Keith Urban, and Harry Connick Jr. 4 or 5 times. I've sat down and talked with them. I feel like I'm getting in the groove, and then everything airs. And then when it's live show, it's like all I'm thinking about is game time. Like, let's go. There aren't any nerves anymore. It's just I'm exhilarated and I'm ready to go.
So you weren't nervous when you were doing like the live shows?
By the time it got to the live shows, no.
Wow.
There weren't nerves. It was just like,
let's do this.
Let's freaking go.
Yeah.
Like Tom Brady screaming,
dude,
let's go.
Funny you mentioned, because I will say that in watching that, I'm like, he kind of looks like a young Tom Brady from certain angles. But then looking at you now, you kind of look like an old young Sheldon.
Nice. An old young Sheldon.
You know what I'm talking about? You know the TV show Young Sheldon?
Yeah.
Picture his face. He's a little kid.
Honored.
Dude, add 20 years.
That's so funny.
Boom. Yeah.
I've never gotten that before.
Well, so you had that real, I mean, it's just crazy to me to think about the crucible that must be. This is a guy that had the complete opposite experience in his career. And I was never like, my vocal chops are not the kind of that would gather people around. I can sing, but it's just like, I'm not like that guy. Sure. And so I never had a 0 to national TV experience. And that's a really unusual experience that I think that maybe makes or breaks a lot of people. Okay, good job. You made it to the very end. You're like runner up in the show.
Yep.
Did you know in advance of the actual airing the outcome? Or
no.
So you found out, really find out in front of everybody.
Oh yeah.
Walk us through the emotions
of the finale. Of like the
just
final.
like, the final moment.
Yeah. Well, at that point, there's the one thought, there's this one, myth that only the winner gets signed to like the infamous contract. And it's just not true. They can sign anybody they want. You sign, at least on my season, it was this way. And I think it's still this way. You sign at top 24 and then they can pick up your option if they want to for anybody in the top 24. So there's this one part of like people saying like, well, I don't like, it's great to get second because then you won't get signed and you get all the exposure. And that's not necessarily the truth. And they had talked to me a lot and I was fully convinced that they were going to sign me no matter what when it was top.
At their discretion. You had pre-signed your side of it.
That's correct.
You're like, I will if you accept me.
That's correct.
Great position to be in. Wonderful. Okay, continue.
And so I was like, well, I might as well win, And I'm such a competitor and sports was my first love. And I think that's where I got a lot of the high stakes. Like, I love it. Like that stuff, I think I got that from sports growing up. And I was like, well, I might as well win if they're going to sign me no matter what. Like, let's go. And we get to the end and I'm thinking, okay, I need to not even visualize, but like imagine my name being read by Ryan Seacrest. It comes out and he opens the card and I had learned a couple weeks before, there's one episode where you're out there, he opens the card and I looked over and you can just see on the card, like who made it. Mm-hmm. So I told Nick Fradiani is the winner of my season. I told Nick before we went on, like, don't look at the card. Like Clay Aiken and Ruben Studdard, Clay famously looked over and saw the card before the announcement. And so I told him, like, don't look at the card. He's like, okay. So our heads are down. We got our arms around each other. And I'm trying to imagine him saying my name. I'm trying to hear my name. And up to that point, every single cut on American Idol, when it was the time to make the cut, it was this weird confidence, but I knew that I was going through every time. I wasn't at top 24 thinking, oh, I'll be at least top 5. A lot of people talk like that. I never even thought about it. I just knew that cut in the moment, I'm not going home. I know I'm not. Up until that moment. And I tried to imagine Ryan saying my name and I couldn't. I was like, what's going on? Like I couldn't even, I was trying to force his voice in my head saying Clark Beckham. And I couldn't. And I was like, it's not happening. I didn't win. And then he said, Nick Fradiani. And what surprised me so much was this, incredibly dynamic dichotomy of emotion. I was upset because I didn't win. It's a form of rejection. It's a form of more people said the other guy than said you know, in the voting. But then there was this emotion that I didn't even expect or think about, which was my absolute best friend in the world, who I would die for today, still today, just won American Idol. And I was so excited for him, which I didn't even have time to speculate that would be a feeling I would have. But but both were there and they were present. They were both very real and they were both very intense. Mm-hmm. And then I left, and you walk right into like press, and I was just like, I know that God led me here for a reason, and He didn't lead me here just to drop me now. And I know it's for the better and everything. You know, I said all the right things and just kept moving. But that's what shocked me the most was how excited I was for him.
Just an aside, where's he at now? Do you guys stay in touch?
Yeah. He's been super successful on Broadway. So he played Neil Diamond in the Neil Diamond musical.
Fantastic.
And can sound just like him.
Yeah.
It's freaky, but he's doing great.
Awesome. Genuinely glad to hear that.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you are too. Okay. So I had a friend that was on the podcast not too long ago that was on just a couple of seasons ago. And he said that, you know, he actually cheated over and looked and saw that he wasn't the guy. And so he was like kind of ready. And then, but he said that after the press, you're kind of like deer in headlights a little bit. At least he was. And then you go right to a counselor for 15 minutes to kind of like make sure you're going to like
make sure you're good.
Live through this.
Yep.
So you did that as well.
Yep.
And then did they obviously didn't option the recording contract, or what happened?
Yeah. They have, I can't remember how many days like to decide, but that was my season was the last season they did the American Idol tour. So then we went on tour, and then after the tour was over, that's when they made their decisions. And they told me like, we're not going to pick up your option. Which, again, another big old dichotomy of emotion. I knew that was such a good thing, but I also was like,
they didn't pick me.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why? Because bottom line is, business-wise, like, straight up, they don't think you're a good investment. I mean, that's really the bottom line of it. And that was, you know, that was upsetting. I'm like, you don't believe in me? You know, there's this thing in there. But oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad.
Yeah, absolutely.
That
so
happened.
they reject you. You have a little kick in the teeth there. And then you go back home, but you're still Clark Beckham runner up for season 14. There's a huge name of recognition that goes with that. There's huge opportunity that accompanies that. And as you like sensed or knew, what a wonderful moment to have, and all of the possibilities that could go forward with that. What happened in the wake of that? Were you like, I should release some music, or did a bunch of people come at you and be like, do this for, you know, maybe you want to be this guy, maybe you want to be this guy? What?
Yeah, really. I just got a bunch of inquiries for gigs, and
gigs meaning like gigs,
like
or
corporate stuff, like just one off, come sing for this, come sing for that. Come sing like for my kid's 16th birthday, and we'll pay you a number that you never thought you would ever
totally.
get paid for.
A very big number for you.
Yeah, like just those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And the problem was, I thought, oh, this is my life now. And this will be my career for the rest. This is how my life's going to be.
Bar mitzvah singer.
Yeah. Well, it was more of just like, sweet, I'm going to get paid so much money for the rest of my life to come sing at things. Good with that. And that, unfortunately, that was pretty much the only thing I was cared about. I was like, great, I'll make good money and I can sing at things, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't the proper amount of pursuit of career, of albums, of projects, of creation.
You just cashed.
I was
those
just like,
chips.
sweet. I'll just go sing at things. And this is fun.
So
and
you did do that.
I did do that.
For how long did that last? Years?
Present day. I mean, I still,
Yeah, sure.
it's just, that's kind of always been there. And then such bad decisions. I was like, well, I do want to do this song. I feel really good about it. And there's this producer that I met on the show who produced Chris Brown and Tori Kelly. And he said he's willing to produce my thing too. And it's going to be like $10,000 just for his fee. And then he also wants like all these points, whatever that word means.
Yeah.
And I have that money and this is the next step. And so after everything, I end up spending the amount of money that I could have made a full album with because I thought I had to do it this certain way. Mm-hmm. And then the song didn't do well. It sounds awesome. The production is incredible. Like the musicians are the best I could imagine. It's amazing and no one really cares. And I just spent so much money on a song that didn't do really anything for my career and a music video and all of this. And I really made bad decisions.
Let me ask you this really
way.
quickly. So you had this beautiful song that lives up to the promise in a sense, like sonically, and he delivered on that.
Oh yeah.
And then did you hire a publicist? Did you have a team around you? Was there a label putting it out, or was there a plan of like a promotional plan?
No, it was just, I have all these followers on social media and this is the song and now it's out, and I have a music video and it's going to get millions of views on YouTube, and like, here it comes. I'm going to explode because this is so awesome. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
At least it didn't.
Yeah.
And I tell people, it's funny. I tell people now that come off the show the same stuff that my dad told me when I came off the show that I didn't listen to. Just so annoying, to know like, dang, the voice of reason was right there and I just rejected it. But you're going to get paid a lot of money for some gigs in the next 3 or 4 months. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and do not spend money you don't have to spend, and make really good music as cheaply as you can and make as much of it as you can, and invest in things and get some passive income you get paid. Sometimes these artists will.
This is annoyingly wise, all of these things your dad is
so
saying
annoying. Yeah. And I mean, you're going to get a random gig that's going to pay you like $40,000 to sing 2 songs. Like, it's going to happen and you're going to freak out and it's going to happen. And then you have to take that and do something really wise with it. And I thought I did that. I was like, great, I'm going to buy all this gear. I was like, because this is my
physical objects.
And I just made so many bad decisions right after.
But you were 23, 24
Yeah.
age? Yeah. So, I mean, you can bounce back from that stuff.
Oh, totally. And I have, and I thought I was wise because it's not like I was buying a car and like going out and like partying and spending $10,000 on like a bar tab or something.
You were investing in your career as best you knew how to, given your limited information and mule-headedness. Yes. We could say.
Mule-headedness is really important. Yeah. Yes, that's accurate.
Okay, awesome. So this happens. This is 2018 is when season 14 happened.
15.
Oh, 15. Okay, so you eventually make a record, an LP. Mm-hmm. A much more positive experience. It debuted like high on the charts, or
yeah, it did well. It did, and again, independent, like no publicist, no no real team. I had a manager. Mm-hmm. I was signed under Quincy Jones Productions.
That's right.
And it actually came out after I was dropped by Quincy Jones Productions. And that's honestly what made it come out, because I was just collecting checks and like, cool, I'm a musician, my bills are paid, I'm the stuff, like, this is great. Yeah, I'm working on an album and stuff. We'll see when it comes out. That kind of naive BS.
Yeah.
And there was one day, I've never told this story, but my manager called me and said, "Hey, I have a tough conversation to have with you." I was like, "Okay, let's hear it." She said, "I'm leaving Quincy Jones Productions. I'm leaving that management team, and I'm going to go, I have another job that I've been offered." And I was like, "That's awesome. Like, I'm going to miss working with you, and you're great, but I'm so happy." And I genuinely was like, I know this must be a great opportunity for you to take it. And she's such a wonderful person and a really hard worker. And I'm like, this is exciting. Happy for you. And I thought that was the hard conversation. And she said, she managed me, Jonah Nilsson / Dirty Loops, and a friend of mine, Eli Teplin, who's a great songwriter. And they're like, "Okay, so for you, Jonah and Eli," they sat down like a kind of a conference table meeting thing, and they've got 5 or 6 other managers, like day-to-day managers, and they were going to figure out who's going to take my artists. So-and-so is going to take Eli, so-and-so is going to take Jonah. But when your name was brought up, nobody stepped forward.
Raised their hand.
Nobody, and it was kind of like,
she said this in the phone or like,
yeah, which I appreciate, telling the truth instead of some like BS, like, "We just the direction of where you're headed and ours, we think it's best." She's just like, "This is what happened."
Yeah.
And nobody raised their hand. And it's like, oh. And like, so they have to okay it with Quincy, but they're going to drop you. The next day, I had a writing session with Andrew Stefano and Jordy Searcy, monster songwriters, producers, brilliant at what they do. And I was like, "Hey guys, this is what happened, and I kind of want to write a song." And I had about that, and I had this idea of back to the way that it's always been. It's just me who believes in me. And it's this like, just me that believes in me. Beautiful. Type of a thing.
Absolutely.
And we wrote that song, and then I was like, "I'm going to make this album, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm going to do all this
Back
thing."
to singing on the street corner with all the bar managers who wouldn't let you play in the clubs.
Yeah.
They're going to be standing out in their stoop being like, we let him.
Exactly.
We let him slip through
and
our fingers.
I had this, and I'm so disappointed that it takes stuff like that when I look back on my life. It took stuff like that for me to make moves,
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't this intrinsic, like, fiery, romantic drive of, "I'm going to make it one day. And I live music and I can't stop. And I'm just making music all the time." And I see people like that. And I am jealous of them. And there's a voice going like, "You're really probably not meant for this music thing. You're just lazy. Like, you don't have what it takes." And I started to, I've had probably like all of us have, all creatives have, I've had that existential crisis kind of moment of like, am I made for this? Am I an idiot? Am trying to do this thing? Is this am I good enough? Can I cut it? And I actually read a book that you're probably aware of, The War of Art.
Yeah.
And it was so freeing to me, because he talks about how you have to treat your art like a job, and you're not going to want to do it all the time. And I didn't know that was a thing. I thought that if you did art, it's because it's just comes out of you. It just comes out, man. It's inspirational, and inspiration happens, and you just love it so much. And I was never that. So I thought there was a problem with me. But really, I think that's just what everyone does on Instagram. They make it look like, "Yeah, man, just in the studio all the time and got this thing coming out." And that's the problem, is when I would compare myself to other people's fiction of themselves, I was convinced that I wasn't made for this. But the reality is, if you're going to do this as a profession, it's going to feel like work. And that's how it's supposed to be,
there's not anybody who's achieved greatness in any industry that didn't treat it like a job.
Yep.
I think there's definitely some like supremely talented people who had some huge splashes like right on the outset of their career because they're just, the talent was so undeniable.
Sure.
But to sustain a career across time is nothing but just blood, sweat, and tears all the way through. I think that's one of the reasons why this podcast exists and why kind of the people in my community are, I'm interested in talking with them, and I am one of them, because they have somehow figured out how to have a sustained career in the arts, you know, in all the different ways that people do, but they figured it out. And I think that's one thing. I'd be curious to get your perspective on this, but my own experience, you know, when I was that kid when I was in high school, and I had some like positive experiences. I mean, as a very small boy playing music, I could just do it. When I sang, like I remember in third grade, I had this experience. The cutest girl in class would never talk to me in a million years. During the Christmas program, she raised her hand and asked the teacher if she could stand next to me. And I was just like,
oh, let's
holy go. Yeah. I was just like, wait a second. That's a thing. And I mean, that was I laugh about that, but that was that was the seed of a great problem in my life, and in some ways of just using music to get attention and kind of having it fill a hole. And only in much later in my life have I learned that was kind of what was going on. I could just look at it directly and call it what it was, and then from that find a new reason for it to be. Like if it's not in service of this bottomless need that has to do with relationships and unfulfillment, what then is the reason to make music? And I learned that could it be perhaps to make music?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Oh wow, it's great. It's been great. Anyway, being a young person, and when you're young and you have all kinds of energy, and music is so important when you're young, and everybody wants to kind of be a rock star. A lot of creative people do. As time goes on, more and more people fall off because it is a job and it is hard and it's not glamorous. Actually, there's a few moments, but mostly it's just like it's getting rejected. It's getting back up. It's just dealing with the impossible difficulty of making something good in the first place. And all of that kind of, you know, is like low key sucks. But it's just really interesting it's time's way of like separating the chaff from the wheat, in artistic terms, and not to say that like young people can't make incredibly great art. That happens every day.
Yeah.
But just the living, sustained reality of like being a creative person across time, that's reserved for not too many people, actually, you know? And I feel like what you're saying is kind of a reflection of that story and your own discovery of that in yourself. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, there is this like, as much as I say, I don't have that romantic, crazy drive of like music all the time. Like I have to do music, but in the same way, like if I don't touch a instrument in like 48 hours, I get weird. Like I just get real antsy. And the idea of not making music, which I've learned the reward, like what draws us to music as listeners or creators, is the emotional connection and the expression of feeling. Music can make us feel good, sad, but it makes us feel something. That the draw to what I do when I create music and sing, and there is no way. It's one of the most certain things I believe in my whole life. There's no way I will ever stop, can ever stop. There's no way. Mm-hmm. No way. My mom will sometimes be like, you haven't released anything in a while. Are you stopping? Like, are you still like pursuing a career in music? And I think, what are you talking about? But I don't realize that's the vast, vast, vast majority of people when they're in their early 30s or when they get married or what. I mean, that was my dad. Mm-hmm. You know, when my dad had me, like, okay, he stopped. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, I put it down and I had to go to work. Like that I am incapable. I know that with all my heart. I'm absolutely incapable, for better or for worse, of putting the guitar or the microphone or the piano down and doing something else full time. Like I'll do what I need to do to provide and pay bills. And even if that looks like getting a job at Walmart, whatever, but there's no way I'll ever put music down ever.
Yeah. I will just say, dude, from my perspective, and I think a lot of people's, your talent is so obvious and so you're in touch with something so deep and basic that it is, the term touched by God, I think applies to you. And it would just be such a crazy shame for that light to ever be covered up, to use the childhood term. Yeah, man. And this is also, I love that you're talking like this, because as somebody who doesn't know you, candidly, you reached out about the podcast, and I'm curious about how you'd even heard about it. I was wondering, I actually have no idea because this podcast is not huge. But candidly, I had never heard of you before because I don't watch the TV shows very much. And so I clicked over and watched, and I was just like, dude, this guy is so much more talented than just at first glance than just 99% of people out there trying to do it. And I'm like, what? And then there's stuff of you like having encouraging talks with other people. And I'm just like, this asshole, just sorry. I'm just like, is he like one of these guys that's just waltzing through life with his beautiful talent? He's a handsome guy and he's like talking about acting. And I'm just like, God, I guess I'll have him on. But,
that's funny.
But so it's just really, it's refreshing, I think, to me, but I think to like kind of anybody listening who sees you as somebody that's like got this undeniable talent, to just be like, well, he struggles, man. He's like, he's got his shortcomings, and he's kind of like, to hear you, contemplate the fact that like, maybe I don't have what it takes, or, maybe I don't have the fire, or in a weird sort of way, it's encouraging to, we mere mortals.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's so important to find a way to be vulnerable and show people your shortcomings, because if they just see all the great things, they're going to think that's all that there is. And if they don't mirror that, then they're not good enough, and they don't have what it takes. Because that's exactly what I thought. And the reality is, like, people see all the stuff I'm doing and all the work and all the things that are coming out and the Instagram posts and the cool gigs, and they see all of this, and then I come across, I think, very put together and very productive, but I don't post when I had an hour blocked off to go write this guitar course idea I have, or to work on my set, or to like practice, and instead I decided to play Fallout 3 on my Xbox, and I missed that hour. And that might sound like no big deal, but that stuff adds up, and it steals time and productivity, and it steals from the dream and my purpose. And I know that sounds extreme, but they don't see that I fail every day. I'm being productive and doing the right thing, and I'm constantly under this fear and this burden of this voice saying like, wasted talent. You're not doing enough. Look at this guy. You're not doing it. Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you writing every day? When was the last time you wrote? How many hours did you spend watching basketball, NBA playoffs? Wow. Wasted talent. Oh, you could have you did this gig in this like section right here in your set. Like you missed the chord because you only practiced like a couple times because you thought you were good because you've done the song enough, and you didn't. Dang, wasted talent. You didn't have. Why don't you have more courses out? Why don't you don't have an album out? You haven't had an album out in like 3 years. What are you doing? You have Logic. You're a piano player. At least do a piano vocal album. Christmas, nothing. Like you don't have anything.
Now you're making me question you. I'm just like, God, what is...
Well, that's the voice, man. It's man. What are you doing? And that's the voice that, and the reality too, because the voice isn't lying. Like there's truth.
Yeah, I was going to say
there.
there's tons of truth there.
And I think it's important that us us artists, us creators, instead of giving all the advice on like what to do to wanna be and like aspiring artists, make sure we don't paint this picture that's inaccurate and that makes them really just come away with, I don't have what it takes. Because we suck.
Yeah.
Like we screw up and make stupid decisions and are lazy and are selfish and are unproductive all the time.
I love this. And I know I've said a couple times what this podcast is about, but maybe it's just worth underscoring again, is that if I'm on a mission at all, I'm on a couple of missions. But one of them is that people that know me or that know the things that I'm a part of feel empowered and encouraged to make art for themselves in whatever way that is. You know, it's like write one couplet might be enough, you know? And I think that comes from, in a sense, like I didn't grow up around music very much. My parents never listened to music at all, but it was in church, like a lot of us. And I grew up thinking that it was like something that happened out there with people that, you know, were important and that could really do it. But I always wanted to participate in it. And so I was fortunate to I had a high school band and we were like serious and we did it. This is all going somewhere, which is that like sometime I was like 20, 21. I went to college in this little college town in Washington State. And I was starting to like go to shows and stuff at the bars. And I was just like, all these people are so cool. It's all so cool. And I'm not as cool as those guys. I don't dress as cool and I'm not cool. Like that word cool appeared a lot apparently.
I'm not cool enough.
I wasn't cool enough. And I went to a bluegrass festival right around then. And that was such a formative experience for me because this particular one was in the hotel in downtown Tacoma, Washington, another heartbeat of bluegrass music. And it was like you walked into the front doors. I'll never forget. I walked through the front doors of the Sheridan Inn, and it was just all of a sudden, everywhere you looked were little pockets of people playing music, little kids playing with grandpas, and you know, big people playing with little people, old people playing with young. And I was just like, this is what I want to be a part of. Like this is people playing music like together, and nobody's getting famous. There were some like, you know, quote unquote famous bluegrass bands bands that were headlining that particular festival, but nobody in bluegrass is actually famous. And that, you know, that kicked off like really like 8 years probably. I ran a bluegrass band that was like why I got to play music for a living. And we had a moment out in the Northwest, and is why I got to do this. And over time I was like, yeah, I'm never going to be Chris Thiele or like these guys. I moved to Nashville and like these guys got bluegrass in their bones. But consequently, you know, like, so in some ways that was a failed experiment in the sense of my original dream was like, I just really wanted to play guitar like Tony Rice. I will never play guitar like Tony Rice, a famous flat picking bluegrass guitar player, late great. And, but along the way, I got to like, I have pretty great chops for, a singer songwriter. And that's really my gift. You know, it's like, I'm a guy that, I'm good at a lot of things, kind of like you, but, I'm not trying to say like, whatever. I'm just, we have some things in common, a bit of a facility for a number of instruments.
Sure. Yeah.
One of them. That's maybe a better way to put it. But really I'm like, you know, a crafty songwriting guy. This is all to say that, I've kind of had to forge this career of its own kind, you know, really have made it up every day of my life in a sense for 25 years. And, consequently I have a strong feeling of empathy for anybody who has a yearning to express themselves through art, but who feels like that is something that professionals do and not for them.
Yeah.
And I have always been much less interested in art on a stage, though I love going to shows and we go all the time. We take our newborn daughter to shows probably twice a month. Wow. But I'm much more interested in just being part of the creation of art, whether it's music or film or other things, because it's a way of being alive. Anyway, so love hearing this of the struggle inside and the way that your insecurity kind of manifests, where it's not like I'm never going to be able to hit that note. You know, it's like, I just don't want it as bad as this other guy. You know, like, oh, I'm watching NBA. I should be writing a song. And it's really hard. I ask you this. it's really hard to strike a balance between forgiving yourself for your perceived shortcomings, which are, maybe not, and also listening to that crack the whip inside you that's like, come on, yeah, I do got to get back in here. Hard to know what to accept about yourself and what to take back to the grinder and hone. Do you have any insights or strategies or stories to share?
Yeah, for me, I'll just speak for myself so that it won't be controversial, because it's just for myself, even though that I think everybody should do this. And think
you
this
ruined
way.
it in advance. Okay.
For me, that voice is true and it should be listened to and believed. The part that you should not listen to is where it touches identity. So when it says you're not made for this because you wasted your time playing Xbox for an hour instead of practicing your set, and then you messed up in that set, and you wouldn't have if you would have practiced. Take the first part out. I've learned to take that identity part out. You're not made for this. Okay. That's the devil. Like, that's the part you take out. The other part, I do not subscribe to the self-love narrative to the extent of, give yourself some grace. It's fine. Look at this person. Like, they're not doing anything.
You're okay just the way you are.
Exactly. Like, you know what? It's good sometimes to play Xbox, just to get your mind, and then start convincing yourself that irresponsibility helps you. And it doesn't. And maybe it's because I grew up playing sports, and the best coaches for me were the ones that were screaming at me, like really tough coaches that I knew loved me deeply, but would say the truth very loudly and not cut corners with it. I have to adapt those coaches to my own inner dialogue. And my responsibility is, okay, when you're talking to yourself, Clark, make sure you're that coach that deeply loves you, but will also say the truth, and know that, okay, yesterday is gone. Today, you are in full control of the 16 hours that you're awake. You can do so much in 16 hours. Let's nail this next day. And that's really where it comes. If your mind is telling you you're irresponsible and you're lazy, it very well it's probably right. You probably are, at least in that moment, in that situation. Listen to it, but don't listen to the part that says you're inadequate. You're not capable of this. Turn that to, all right, next day, I'm going to have the best, most productive day ever.
I love that. I think that's absolutely useful, and also kind of a bit of a novel take on what is more commonly addressed as you're okay just as you are. Don't worry about trying.
Yeah,
so hard.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, no,
I am not okay just as I am. Just as I am is path of least resistance. It's lazy. It's ice cream and cookies and cake and Taco Bell and video games and doing just enough to pay the bills. I am not okay with that. That is who I am when I have zero discipline and I don't try. I am not okay just the way I am. I have to rise above to what I see as my full potential, and that is freaking hard. And there are so many pitfalls, and there's so many times where I trip over myself, and there are weeks where I'm a freaking all-star. I am crushing it. And then there are weeks where I am the worst. But the idea of saying, like, you know what, it's okay. In a way, sure, it's okay. Don't kill yourself. Like, just be better. Like, it's gone, it's past. But the idea of, like, you know what, it's good to let off some steam and play. It's like, no, do not justify the way that you are. Maybe you're exactly the way that you want to be, exactly how you are naturally. I am not, because naturally I am a lazy, undisciplined person, and I'm not okay with that.
Maybe this is a nice segue into our instrumental break. and we have a piano here in the studio. Would you mind sharing a song?
I would love that. Let's do it.
Maybe you could set it up.
Yeah. So it's funny. You actually said something about when you learned that playing music or singing got you social attention from that girl.
Mm-hmm. And many girls thereafter.
And loads more. And he went, oh, sweet. I think a lot of us have that same story.
Yeah,
and for me, I wasn't really popular until I got good at stuff. And then I got popular. Idol, where my talent was on a big platform, then I got super popular and had tons of friends. And then I thought, why do I have so many friends? I think it's because more people know that I can do music really well. And then I was on Idol and everything, and I thought, oh no, are these people friends at all? What if I wasn't a singer? What if I didn't play? What if I wasn't talented at these things? How many people would still be texting me? And that's where the song came from.
Let's hear it.
Nobody told me it'd be so lonely with all these people around. They go through motions, waves tossing oceans. They wouldn't help me off the ground. So many ears, so many eyes, so many wolves. I see how they hide. They take what they want and leave me behind. Why do I feel like nobody loves me? Only the things I do. If I stop this song, would you stay here or leave me? Somebody tell me the truth. Oh, nobody told me it'd be so lonely with all these people around. They go through motions like waves tossing oceans. They wouldn't help me off the ground. Oh, so many ears, so many eyes, so many wolves. I see how they hide. They take what they want and leave me behind. Why do I feel like nobody loves me? Only the things I do. If I stop this song, would you stay here or leave me? Somebody tell me the truth. Oh, why do I feel like nobody loves me? Only the things I do. If I stop this song, would you stay here or leave me? Somebody tell me the truth. Somebody tell me the truth. Oh, somebody tell me the truth.
Dude, that was just a little much for the afternoon. It was just fantastic, and thank you. And
Thanks.
Yeah, man. There's just something about a solo performance when there's all the space and all the nuance, and exactly what was in you is what came out. And it's another thing that this podcast is all about. So very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the space to do it. It's perfect. Piano's perfect. Like that, good old upright, like imperfect, like just the perfection of the imperfections. And that's what this song's made for. So when I saw that, I was like, this is perfect.
Yeah, there's a lot of that around here. Imperfect perfection. Okay, this is maybe a nice segue into what I been most excited to talk with you about, because I saw the posts, all of the great singing. I'm talking about your reels and your Instagram stuff. Fantastic singing is the first thing you're going to see when you see anything by Clark Beckham. But then you're also going to be like, man, this guy knows his music theory. Wow, he's a good piano player. Like, there's a lot going on. And then the next thing is this layer of like really deep thoughtfulness about harmony and possibility, which is there's just a lot going on. And I live in that world a little bit, and am really interested in it. And there's a quote that you put, I think it's the byline of your Instagram, and it says, Jesus loves the flat five.
Yeah.
And I just find that this is so arcane in a way, and no one is going to feel like this, but I found that to just be an incendiary statement.
Oh, cool. Yeah, good.
Yeah. I mean, in fact, in prepping for this pod, I revisited my old college thesis and did some additional research about the impact of blues on 20th century music, and my feeling in my body and in my own relationship to music that the blues remains the devil's music. And so to say that Jesus loves the flat five is this crazy controversy that no one cares about anymore, because we're so inured to blues in popular music. And but back there was a time, in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and then finally when it was like mainstreamed into rock and roll, where it really was the stuff of scandal, the influence of blues in popular music. And so I guess first of all, I just want to ask you, what did you mean by that?
Is actually an experience that I had when I was a part of a worship leading like ensemble, like a team of like 6 of us, and we would go sing for churches and youth camps and stuff like that. We'd lead worship, and there were 8 of us on stage at a time, and then each part had a alternate, basically, so that we didn't have to sing 2 hours straight. We could sub in and out pretty much. And there was this one song, and there was this one harmony of this like refrain that was going over and over again, and I heard this beautiful rub, and it was, the chord was a 4 chord, so let's say we're in the key of C, and it was just 4 and 5, 4 and 5, and I don't even remember exactly what the song was, but the progression was like, and then it would just go back, and our harmonies were stacked like that, like this chord. Mm-hmm. And I remember
2
we
major
just
chords next to each other.
That's right. And I remember we were all singing that, and it was really nice. And then I remember just thinking, like, we were just in practice, and I was like, what if, I was like, hey, can you let me be a stray harmony and me sing this note? That. Mm-hmm. So those 2 notes together, and it was just like, and to resolve. Mm-hmm. And also, funny enough, my first memory where music struck me was watching Land Before Time. I was like 3 years old, and James Horner did the music, and Whispering Winds at like 1 minute and 18 seconds, an oboe plays that note on that chord. And it stuck with me from 3 years old, and I heard this moment to do it again in this situation. And everyone, when I was like, what about this? everyone was like, oh no, it's too crunchy. What is that? And I was like, please, 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 please let me do this. Like, it is so haunting, especially in a harmony, vocal harmony situation. And the director is like, fine, Clark, you can do your weird note, you know? And then we were doing that song at a church, and I was in the congregation. I wasn't up there. And I was like, no, I can't do the note, you know, the flat 5, that note. And I had someone smarter than me say, actually, it's a sharp 11. I'm like, okay, you know, go read a book, leave here. But so I just wanted to get that out in front so no comments would be like, it's actually a sharp 11.
Nice.
I know.
Way to nip
But
that in the bud.
this was, I wasn't there to sing it. And I was like, dang. And then the part came and I heard the note and it was gorgeous in the chord. And I was looking up, looking side, and I was beaming with pride because I was like, someone agreed with me up there that they liked that flat 5 note too. They liked that sharp 11 chord, and they did it. I didn't know people had the ear for that. Someone did it. So afterwards I went up and I was like, who was it? Who did it? And everyone I asked, they're like, I don't know. I heard it too. And man, it was nice, but it wasn't me. I don't know. It was probably Janie. Went to Janie. Did you hear that? I didn't do it. I heard it though. And I thought it was you, but then I saw you in the congregation and I thought maybe I heard you sing it from there, but I don't know. I asked everyone and they all had the same answer. I heard it too. It wasn't me. I don't know who did it. And all of them said, I couldn't even have picked that note out if I wanted to.
Wow, dude.
And I am fully convinced in that moment, God himself thought that flat 5 needs to be there. We need that. I like that too.
It's a pretty good story. I'm going with it. I like it.
And it was a message to me of like God saying, hey, that weird chord that everyone made fun of you about. No, I like that too. And it, like he sent an angel like, hey, go hit that part. We need that. I need that. I want that. And it showed me that these chords, these diminished chords or sharp 11s and these jazz chords that we so too often play with a side eye to the rest of the band, or like a jab in the ribs, like major 11, am I right? Check this out.
Yeah.
Like those chords are divine and they're from him and he likes them too. And they're a way to interface with who he is and his image. And they're not just a look at me. They're not a novelty. They are God himself. They're part of his language. And that's how I interface with the creator, with God, is playing these chords that he loves too. And that's my inspiration for arranging too. Because if you start to arrange with self in mind, with, ooh, people will really think this is cool of me in mind, flesh gets involved, and that sharper than any two-edged sword piercing down to the division of soul and spirit, joint and marrow, that element goes away and you lose it. But if you're just arranging and you're finding these chords because it emotes the right thing, it tells the right story, and it works for art's sake, you get that word of God power is what it feels like. And this could even be sacrilegious of me. And if it is, God forgive me, I'm just a human who's trying to figure this out. But it's the same description that I get when it talks about the word of God being sharper than any two-edged sword. When a chord hits just the right way at the right time, or a melody or a lyric or a musical element, boy, does it pierce down to the division of soul and spirit through the most hardened heart. That's what we're trying to get to in music, not trying to be impressive, trying to change the heart.
I have some things I want to say to this. I am moved by what you're saying, and I absolutely get it as somebody who, loves music and has been in the presence of music and has been pierced by music. And there's just these two things I want to say. Here's the first one. This is the easier one, is that also what you're saying is something about creating a more complicated emotion. It's not the word. There's something about that's involving the brain, the mind, to make something even better than it would be if you were just to play the obvious and the simple chord, the 1 6 4 5, and that gives me hope and personal interest in revisiting a form of music which I have dismissed out of hand for so long. And it's not dismissed out of hand isn't even the word I want to say. I would say it is why I don't go to church, is because of praise and worship music. Can I say something about all of this? This is a little bit about me, but this is about you. And where I grew up in a small town in Idaho, and we had this very humble little church. And like all humble little churches, the music was humble, and it was a piano and an organist on Sundays, maybe if you're lucky, if he was in town. And we sang from the hymnal, like the old fashioned way. And then as I got older, this was like in the 80s, early 80s through the 80s, as the 80s progressed and PA systems started finding their ways into churches, all of a sudden there's just like more and more people on stage. And by the time I was in high school, like the middle 90s, there was like a drummer behind the plexiglass. And I was just so, it really affected me. And it didn't in a way that I don't think it affected the rest of my family. They were just like, cool, this is what we do. This is what church looks like. And I was just like, this is the freaking show. And also you guys are not very good musicians, and I'm offended in that way. But in Nashville, you don't get you guys aren't very good musicians side of it, but you often do get the spectacle side of it. And I find it to be so anathema to whatever it is that I'm looking for when I'm in a community of people that are in a mode of praise and worship, to be in this thing that just feels like it belongs at Bridgestone at a $45 ticket. And that's just me, but I think that I am somebody, I think there are people like me out there in the world that are sensitive to music and also want to be part of some kind of expression in a church format. I'm going to just put some dumb words. I'm not a smart person. Just wanted to go to church and sing some songs, but they just are repelled by this, like on stage, and like the freaking mist machine comes in. It's just like, what are we doing here? It feels like a show. And so there's that part of it. And then the other part of it is just like, now the words are up all on the screen, and they're the simplest words. It's like nursery rhyme words, and the chords are are Taylor Swift. Nothing against Taylor Swift. Hope she's a future guest on the podcast. But they're the simplest possible chords, and it feels like it's catering to the lowest common denominator of people. And that is something that has been a deal breaker for me, I guess. And so this is all to say that when you talk about this kind of, it makes me want to go and see you lead praise and worship music. And it makes I realize that everything I'm saying is like, most people do not care about this at all.
I disagree. I think this is I think this is a prevailing thought and a huge issue that tons of people have with the church. And for me, and I have had this thought as well, being a lover of complexity and harmony, and then going to church and wanting that and feeling like it's very simple and those kinds of things. But what I had to realize is, first we have to think about what's the purpose of corporate worship. What's the purpose of worship songs? Praise is to realign ourselves with the truth of God. So there are times when I am not singing a worship song, I'm not singing Our God is Greater. I'm in my life making decisions based on believing the lie that he is not greater. If I am praying for this person to find God and they're not, I'm thinking, come on, God, what are you doing? Sometimes I'm angry at him. Sometimes I'm going to do my own thing. And in that moment, I'm having a lapse of belief in God because I no longer believe that he really does have a life that is full and good for me. And so I'm going to try my own thing. But when I come in and I sing, Our God is Greater, it aligns my spirit back up with the truth. And so if that's the purpose of worship, how can we do that in a setting that will attract the most people to sing together and that will align their lives with the truth, with the word of God? Okay. Probably it's not gonna be such complex chords and lyrics and harmony. This is the theory that would make people get lost. I actually believe we are much more capable of receiving complexity. How come everyone in the world can sing all of Stevie Wonder's hits? And they don't even realize that they've just modulated like 7 times and they're doing it note for note. I think we're actually more capable of complexity. And we're starting to see that in Christian music. There are non-diatonic chords that are showing up all over the place and people are going, I love this. But I think the goal and why it's become so simple is because the goal is to connect with the masses in a way that they can sing along so they can experience the gift that worship is, because worship is not for God. God doesn't need to be told he's great. He doesn't need to be convinced that he's good. We need to be reconvinced that he's good all the time. So with that goal in mind, it makes sense to me that the music is very, 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 very simple. And I do get hope in seeing that it's becoming more complex. And we're seeing the beauty of God in a minor 5 chord, or even a major 2, and we're starting to open ourselves up to that. But I mean, in the 90s and early 2000s, like when I was growing up in church, we had like songs like "There is none like you. No one else can touch my heart like you do. I could search for all eternity long."
What's that chord right there in the
Flat 7.
Flat 7. Okay.
Eternity long. Minor 4 over flat 6. And find 1 over 5. There is none 4 over 5 like you. That is gorgeous. And we went away from that. But the pursuit, even going away from that, has always been, how can we get the most people to sing truth and change their lives and their spirits and line it up according to the gospel? And that's where the simplicity comes. The show thing, the mist, the lights, all of that is a whole nother topic for me that I also had to get free from that judgment of. And for me, it came to, I want cool chords because that's what speaks to me. What about the guy, because that's art for me. What about the guy that lighting is art and that's of God? What makes us feel a certain way when light comes through and there's fog and that we can see the beams, and that's God too. When God created the earth, I hate doing what I'm about to do when I don't know the scripture exactly and I say somewhere in Genesis, but that's what I'm going to do. Somewhere in Genesis, it says when God created the earth, he made these trees in a way because they were pretty, like they looked good. And if you just look outside, God's creation is gorgeous. And then I'm going to say, you can't have the fog machine and the lighting programmed because it's a show and there's no way that that's a worshipful spirit that the lighting guy has. Nope.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, that's the same reason why everybody got to go up on stage and sing, because they wanted to. And who am I? Who is anyone to say that you can't sing? Or that's not a parallel analogy. I realize that, but can we agree? Like, I hear everything you're saying, and it ringeth true. And at the same time, there's something in me that there's some line. It's not a line. It's just a spirit, let's just say, where the willful construction of mood is a human overstepping of the the space that would otherwise be occupied by the Holy Spirit in the still small voice.
Sure.
And it's like, that's not for me to say where all of that is. But I just noticed that. Okay. Like that's the end of that statement for me.
Well, hold on. But you say it's not your place to say if it's like worshipful or if it's more of like human performance, but you're doing it. And I do it too. And I found that in my past, when I go to the Belonging, and their production is very high quality. And I remember I feel very led to go there. And when I went there, I stood in the back.
Is that a church here in town?
Yes.
Okay.
The Belonging Company in Nashville. Okay. Yeah. I remember the first day I went there, I went and I stood in the back and I saw the production. I saw the lights. I saw the pastor with the flat bill hat on. And I was like, and I had that reaction. I was like, I stood there in the back like a just arrogant punk with my arms crossed as holier than thou. And I go, oh, look at them jumping up and down. Look at these lights. They're just trendy Christianity. They don't believe in this stuff. They're just doing a thing. And I was the one who stepped in the way of the Holy Spirit. And I was like, they're not real. And I left like, I don't want to go to that church. And God just kept leading me in different ways, not just a voice or an unction to go back, but in different scenarios, and people led me to go back there. And then I met Andrew Holt, the worship pastor there, who I was judging in the back. And I had coffee with him, and he could not be a purer heart. I mean, he a heart of gold and loves God with all of everything in him. And I thought, oh, there's no way he's faking it. And then I went back, and now that I knew him and that judgment had been removed, I watched and I was like, oh yeah, dude, that guy's for real. And he's going for it. And the only difference was I removed my opinion, because you're right, it's not our place to say. So we just shouldn't, because sometimes, of course, there are people who go, this is my time to shine. Yeah. Because we're humans and we're idiots and we have temptations.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's actually not what I'm talking about. I don't doubt that people I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I realize that what I'm talking about is something even more difficult for me to get over, which is that my calling in life, you could say, or my passion in life, or the place in the world where I feel most inspired and comfortable is in the creative space and in the artistic space. And once you introduce art into the program, you introduce a very subjective and persnickety element called taste. And it is, every single art form has in it a requirement. And this is an ongoing debate that will never end, but it is a thing. And where things are gauche and bad art, or they're not and they're good art. And it is the part of every single person who comes in the presence of an artistic work to place himself in before that and use all of his faculties of discernment and his heart and his mind and what he knows of past art and see what exactly that is. And in some sense, not every freaking work of art gets a pass for effort. And it's not for me to say like that this is right or not, but as a person that consumes art on a regular basis and is damn passionate about it, I think about it more than anyone would ever care to. And it's like an affliction, I guess, as much as anything, but it's the same affliction that drives me to create the best possible work I can in myself. And so I'm really, I guess it's something different if you understand. It's like the criteria of art. This is a thing that goes back to my childhood, and which is like, I was always a judgy little asshole as a little kid, because I cared so much, and I noticed that I cared more than almost everybody around me for a reason that I couldn't really explain or articulate, and that has persisted to this day and has caused me endless amounts of difficulty in my personal relationships and my professional ones, because I have a very hard time pretending that I like something when I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I'm the ultimate arbiter of what's good and bad, but I know what's good and bad for me, and whatever that is, I'm going to honor it with my everything. That's all I've got to offer is my taste, really, and you're surrounded by whatever this is that's my taste. And so it's that thing that's more, and I guess it's like what I want to see and what I'm on a mission to do. One of the other things is to create in everybody a taste for art, and it's just a consideration for what might be something more than just the absolute, musical equivalent of a over caffeinated soft drink. Of just like, and I know that's an asshole thing to say.
No, it's not.
But it's just like, I think it has absolute value, because there are a lot of people that are complicated people that are in need of the Lord. I'm going to just use my I never talk like this on the podcast, but it's coming out.
Good.
And they are unable to be served by the masses, because they see it and they are judgy assholes. But everyone who comes in the presence of art is on some level a judgy asshole, rightly so. Mm-hmm. It's not you don't get an E for effort in art.
Yeah,
you do.
agreed.
But okay, so we understand each other there. So that's what I'm saying. It's something a little different. And I guess I'm just like, I don't want, it's like I want the guy with the lights in the mist to voluntarily step down and make room for people like me. I'm not asking that, but I just like, I wish there was a church out there. I'll just say that, like, my wife and I have been going to the Catholic Church. We stopped going after Christmas for a reason I can only half articulate. That's for another subject I'm not going to get into. But one of the things I did like about it was the music was of an ancient kind of quality. It's just like simple and primitive, but it's not that. What was underneath the music that I appreciated, which was that, and this is what I kind of appreciate about the Catholic Church, even though I'm just not Catholic and I never will be, is that it's not about you. It's not about you. You come here, mass is happening the same way the world over. It's happening basically the same way, minus the introduction of the vernacular instead of the Latin. It has been happening the same way for 1,000 years. And you come and you humble yourself in the sight of the Lord. And you're not there to have it catered just the way you like it. And if you don't like it this way, you can go to the other church where they do it even better. And that's what's kind of going on in the Protestant church scene. I realize that everybody needs to make money, and it's like a competitive scene. And I feel like that's there's a part of me that feels like that's what's driving some of the more shellacked elements of the praise and worship experience, is this idea of like getting the bigger congregation. And that's a deal breaker for me.
I totally get that. And I think I agree on everything you said. I will encourage you, if this is encouraging at all, really high art, brilliant, gorgeous songs are starting to come out for contemporary Christian music and church songs, because I think the overwhelming opinion of especially creatives are exactly what you just said. And that cool, you want us to like this music? I hate this music. I'm not 5 years old. And even if I was, don't think I'd like it any, I totally get that. For me, I'd be banging the table and saying like, yeah, that's right. It's not about you. And that's what I would have said about so many people. And then I realized that even at like the Belonging, which is a big church with a lot of high-end production, and the worship leader is often singing their face off and jumping around and doing the thing, and the lighting's great. And I thought in my head, oh my gosh, look, it's all about them, isn't it? You think it da-da-da-da-da. And then I met the guy and I was like, oh, it's not about him. So my only challenge would be, I understand exactly what you're saying. I've said the same thing, but just because it's a light show and they're very out in front and they're singing their face off or they're doing whatever, it's still not about them, ideally.
Just to be clear, please. I don't think the them in this, the me and it's not about me isn't about the people on stage. It's about the people in
congregation.
The audience.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's that desire on the part of kind of the prospective modern contemporary American churchgoer to be served. It's like wow, this is really some heavy stuff, actually, because I feel like God, there's a self-sacrificing element in that I think that every Christian life is called to. And that I don't think that means you are obligated to be bored in church. I do think it means that you are a little bit aware that you're not the end point in this experience. And I know I know that plenty of people go to churches with their hands up in the air and the smoke's going and the music's huge, that know that. And I can't say what's in somebody else's heart. I'm just like, all I'm saying is I wish that there were a church for me that I would feel comfortable in. And I have yet to find that. And I say this with kind of a growing sense of urgency because we have a 6-month-old. I want to raise her in a church because I liked my childhood. And so, but I'm also unwilling to do it when I just sit there and I'm so uncomfortable. It's like, I apologize for being uncomfortable. I realize that I'm kind of just a curmudgeon who nothing's ever good enough for Korby. Everyone knows that about me. I feel like some part of me has walked through life apologizing for that, which is why I like books so much and why I like these little spaces and these kind of one-on-one conversations where we can have a very authentic conversation. And I feel like I can say whatever is on my heart and you can say whatever's on your heart. And, yeah, I guess that's all I'm going to say. I think I could mumble my way through another few paragraphs, but, I think that this is a really great conversation and a worthwhile one. And I feel like you're going to pray for me.
Regardless of this conversation, bro.
And I will pray for you too. I pray all the time. I think that I am a huge fan. I was a fan before, but I am a huge fan of your vulnerability. And I mean, your talent's easy to adore, but I appreciate you being so forthcoming in this conversation and disabusing prospective listeners of the notion that you're this perfect chosen golden boy, which you are not. You are flawed just like all of us.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for the next piece of music that comes out, and I'll probably follow you on the Instagram now. You're not going to follow me back, but I'm not going to hold it against you.
That's because, for those of you who don't know the context, we were talking, I don't follow anyone on Instagram except my wife. That's literally all. But likewise, man, I've enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you. I could do this all day, every day with you here and look at all of your books and ask questions and talk about them. And last thing I'll say is about, like, this might be something that's valid. It might be something that's not valid. So if it's not valid, great. If it is valid, good. I need to say this. Let's, like, just in case this is reality, like whether this is on camera or not, like, let's totally bump the notion that there's any part of me that is judging or like looking down or like gonna go pray for your lost soul, or like, why don't you see the corporate worship? Like, I don't want to cuss because this might go and that would hurt my demographic, but like, F that. Like, no, there's no part of me that thinks like, oh, poor guy, he doesn't understand. Like,
I don't feel that at all.
Great.
I mean, yeah.
And just like,
I don't think anyone listening would think that.
Great.
Either.
Just when you said like, you'll probably go pray for me, it hit a nerve that I've fallen into this, like, makes me want to run through a wall, like break my head through a glass window of like anyone seeing me as someone like that's judging them or like the goody church boy. And then all of a sudden it puts a wall up of like, oh yeah, I'm the non-church person and you're the church person. And it puts a wall that we can't connect. And I never, ever want that. So maybe that goes without being said, but I wanted to say it anyway.
I appreciate you saying that. And that makes me want to say one more thing,
Please.
Which is that I had the very good fortune of growing up in a home of believers. And I had a really great experience because my parents, and particularly my father, was an exemplary person, and was a devout believer and a great dad. And I come from a long line of preachers. My little brother pastors a church in Gig Harbor, and we don't have the closest of relationships. I'm, in fact, not very close with anybody in my family, and I could point to 100 reasons why. None of them are for lack of trying. I'll say that. But I continue to have the utmost respect for my dad and my little brother, who pastors a church, who I don't think has a judgmental bone in his body, and is an absolute servant for the Lord. And so it's like, I know there's a lot of people that feel judged by Christians, and maybe some Christians do judge or whatever, but that was never my experience growing up. My dad never said word one negative about anybody that we ever knew. And so it's easy for me to, when encountering Christians, to kind of intuit. You can find a judgy dick,
sure,
if you're looking, but to intuit when somebody's, it's it's hard to believe,
yeah,
and it's like we're all it's a struggle even for believers. And
yes.
I would put myself kind of like right in the middle. Yeah. I'm like it's that prayer. I'm going to do the thing. In the Paul letters, where the soldier says, "I believe, help me with my unbelief."
Yeah.
And that's kind of me. And I think that's in some ways, I think it's a useful place to be for. I think I perform there's something I do that maybe is helpful to people, because I can hang. I have a hard time going to church because Christians just, like, in actual practice, they just, whatever it is, they freaking bug me. Don't greet me. I just want to come and watch.
Bro, I get it. I'm the same. I get it.
Yeah. But at the same time, I'm just like, man, and I pray a lot, and I never feel reassured really, but I'm hanging in there, and I'm interested. I guess that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
Dude, let's have another conversation again soon.
I would love that.
All right, we'll do it.
Cool.
Thanks, Clark.
Of course.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go ahead and click here to like and subscribe. You can click right there to watch another video, or click here to watch a playlist featuring songs of the Morse Code Podcast. Okay, thank you very much.